We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. Love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what he say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like it's chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. You know what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Know what I need, I know what I need. You find the keys, the keys.
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixers cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing love, holding on for life. chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the light, holding on for life, fading in the light, chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the light.
We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. I want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what to say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yes, what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. You know what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but
Hello everybody and welcome to another stream by Racing Club International. I am Mike Jones, and as you can see here on your screen, we are currently at Zolder from Belgium. We are watching the Ginetta Cup today here at RCI. We've got the Ginettas only racing around this race. Ginetta Cup race at Zolder. Should be an exciting race. These right-hand drive cars, very interesting around this track. Of course, as you hop over all of the curbs, these GT4s really take it well. And seeing these drivers come across the start-finish line as we pan down with our drone camera here across the start-finish line. Should be an exciting race. 60 minutes, 1 pit stop, 10 minutes of qualifying to put down a lap, 2 classes, Pro and Am, here today. About 30 drivers or so on the field. Should be one exciting race. Again, my name is Mike Jones. Joining with me today, currently controlling the cameras, will be Mr. Nick Setnick. He's currently flying our drone camera down the start-finish line here as we watch these guys come across the start-finish line during practice. About 6 minutes remaining in this practice session before we jump over to qualifying. And we've been watching these guys come across here. Currently watching the guy who held the lead actually for a while in practice here until Garland jumped in. This is Hilicalio. He held the lead quite a while here, Nick, before Garland kind of jumped in and took it over for him. And Garland has since dominated this practice session. As we've been watching here for the past little bit, any thoughts you have so far?
Other than I'm just really excited to see a bunch of Ginettas out on track. We saw a couple of Ginettas race around in our Monday Cup, Monday Championship that just wrapped up this last week here. And the Ginetta is just a really interesting car to watch in the GT4 class. A lot of people, as soon as they knew that it likes to top out, especially on tracks with longer straights, that scared a lot of people away, and there was a few that held onto it, and they finished the races out, and it looked like a fun car to race, and it was putting up a lot of excellent competition, especially with the BMW actually ending up not being that competitive of a choice, which was really surprising to a lot of the racers that competed in the Monday Championship. So it'll be interesting to see how these Ginettas shake out for a cup race on their own.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because when I was putting this race together, I was like, I want to do Ginettas, and what track do we do it on? Because you got a bunch of small tracks, right? You got Lozano, you got Brands, you got Zolder, and I was going, you know what? All these curbs on Zolder and these GT4s beat these curbs so well. I think it would be really interesting to see these guys race around at Zolder. And like you said, on the faster tracks, the bigger tracks, these cars don't do quite as well because they top out. These things are a monster coming out of a corner, but then and through a corner for that matter. But as soon as you get them onto a long straight, they hit their rev limiter, and it's unfortunate. But that's how it is in real life too with these Ginettas. So it kind of is what it is. Such things as like the track power card, which might not be a very popular choice here in ACC across the drivers, but in Paul Ricard, when you race in a GT4, that back straight actually has a chicane in the middle of it. So you have that little bit of ease of use for, say, the Ginettas, for example. But even then, you get tracks like Silverstone, you get tracks like Spa, all have really long straights on them, and these Ginettas just don't do as well here. So this is one of the perfect tracks for the Ginetta. I think it's going to be very competitive. And these guys, of course, we love the Cup races because it really comes down to driver skill overall. Currently, we're on board with Osvaldo Souza, who's our AM class leader, and something I'm going to point out to you guys now. I'll probably point this out a couple times, but I apologize. For some reason, the server decided it did not want to read the entry list file right. For some reason, the AM guys and the pro guys are switched on the leaderboard, so the white boards today will be AM and the red boards will be pro. We just didn't want to restart the server again. It wasn't reading at all the first time, but we'll make it through. But yes, that's Souza and the AM class lead, about a second back from Garland, and you can see just these pro drivers kind of filtered throughout a little bit too. Of course, a lot of these guys probably slapping down their qualifying pace, not quite their race pace yet. But 60 minutes of racing at Zolder, a lot can happen. That's a lot of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually wanted to point out that in third place there, that's Hilicalio, who had a dominating run on the Thursday championship where he was in the AM class, and he decided to move up to the pro class just because, I mean, he had a dominating showing. He won every race in that series. So I'm happy to see that he's filtered himself up with the pros. I mean, he has excellent pace. He showed that he was consistent. He pulled off the grid, and I believe he even got pole on each race as well. So a new phase coming in, and it's someone who showed a lot of promise, and he kind of showed his stuff, and now he's up with the pros.
Yeah, it's great to see these guys starting to kind of filter themselves out a little bit more. Of course, the first time they join a championship, you're maybe not quite sure. Should I be pro? Should I be silver? Should I be AM? And of course, Hilicalio now up in that pro class. Dustin Woost here, another one of our regular drivers. Him and his brother Steven. I don't think Steven is on the entry for today. Must be a little busy. But Steven and Dustin are always great drivers to watch as well. They're very competitive drivers. Obviously, Dustin here, he's a little over a second back from Garland at the moment. But, again, it's qualifying, quote unquote, right? Some of these laps that we're going to see here are definitely qualifying. As he is just drifting around the first few corners here, touching the grass a little bit as well. But these Ginettas, as he kind of dives over to the right side of the track there, just hard on the brakes, and you're going to see him just hop over those curbs like it's nothing. And that's what we're going to be seeing all race long. These guys just hopping over curbs. A lot of the GT3 drivers will try and hop over curbs here even. So, of course, we're going to see these GT4 cars that even take it harder, try and get every little cut that you can off of these chicanes so that you have just that little bit of extra time. Because when you're only doing a 135 to 140, give or take a second or two lap time, you need every little every little millisecond that you can get, even especially during qualifying. So as we end practice session here, Nick, we're getting into qualifying. This should be interesting. We're going to see a lot of hippity happen over them curbs today.
Yes, indeed, and I mean that's something that I like watching with the GT4 class. I mean, just how much they can just eat those curbs. I mean, we talk about that a lot here at RCI. That just the amount of curve that they can use in comparison to the GT3 class is just really impressive, and sometimes it leads to moments where you're like, oh, you can't really do that. That's gonna make the car go into local space, but they just take it, and it leads to some really exciting racing. It's led to some really dangerous overtakes even. So that's something that you kind of get only in GT4. It's kind of a exclusive they have.
Yeah, these GT4s, they really do take the curves well. Like, that's the very first thing we noticed. I remember us, me, you, and a random call sign, actually, our first GT4 stream that we did, I believe it was our very first GT4, was at Bathurst. And we were even talking about it there because we had those guys coming across the cutting and stuff at the end of the Conrad Straight, and or not the cutting, sorry, the chase at the end of the Conrad Straight, and you know, watching those guys even hop over the curbs there in those GT4 cars, like that's not something you can do in a GT3, not well anyway, in the middle of the chase at Bathurst or something, or you know, you touch some of those curbs on the top of the mountain. With some of the GT3 cars, you know, stuff like the Aston, the Ferrari, you're gonna do okay there, but you know, you go and hit the NSX or the Lambo or anything like that, and it is just gonna throw you. With these GT4s, it just doesn't do that. And of course, we're gonna, like we talked about, and I feel like we're gonna talk about at least 12 more times today. These Ginettas are just going to keep hopping over the curbs. Of course, this is Andy Boardman. We're going to see him slap down our very first lap for the race today. He's going to come across for his first hot lap right now. This is the number 69 Ginetta for the Pro Class. As you know, again, the boards are switched today for some reason. Don't at me on that one. But you can see he's already using the curbs to get really loose there and sliding around the corner. Guy coming out of the pits does the right thing, makes sure he lets the guy on a hot lap go across, coming across turn 2 and 3 here, and you're just going to see him just touch the curb ever so slightly, hard on the brakes, down to 4th gear, possibly even 3rd gear, not quite sure, but again, touching the curb, and the Ginetta is just perfectly settled as he comes through here, and this is going to be the big one right here, because this is the big curb. About 70 meters in, grabs the curb, and look at that. It's just, you know, you get a little bump, but that's all it feels like, is a little bump, rather than, you know, you do that in a Honda NSX or something, and you're in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, that's something that they kind of have to change your strategy around a little bit. You know, if you're used to the GT3 class, which has been out, you know, much longer at this point, even though we've had a couple months with the GT4 class at this point. But that is something that kind of changes your strategy. That is an extra line that you can take. You really push those curves, and you kind of have to if you want to be competitive in this class, just because everyone else is going to be doing it. So you got to kind of fall in line that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're just going to keep seeing it, and it's going to add to the fun of here. You know, the fun of it today. When I started the servers, I made the password hippity hop today. Just to make sure that everybody knew that they were going to be jumping the curbs, and that's kind of what they're doing. Of course, here's Boardman across the line, a little bit slower than we saw in practice for our lead at a 38.250. However, he did get a little loose through T1 and 2 and 3. We're just going to not bother with the corner names today, because this track has 17 corners or 10 corners, depending on who you're asking. If Ryan's in the chat, I'm sure that he'll go on some sort of rant at some point about that one, as he has a lot of feelings about it. But Boardman, you know, he is currently holding steady on his time, as we're seeing more laps be put down. There's Garland placing down a 38.253, 3,000ths back off Boardman. Of course, he was our de facto practice session leader. Boardman not looking like he's picking up the time at the moment. However, the 3 cars behind him are Garland's 3 tenths up, now 2 tenths up, Billy Octane a couple tenths up, Bach back and forth almost 6 tenths up, in fact. So we're going to see if these guys can hold steady and grab this first place from him. Garland actually lost quite a bit of the time he had up. He's gaining it back, but he lost the 3 tenths that he did have in the first couple corners, now into Sector 2. Still only 3 tenths up, so he's still picking up time. He's got that time there. And, of course, we're looking at Billy Octane as well, only 300ths back, and he is 5 tenths up, as he's shortly behind. He's about 10 seconds or so behind Garland here on his lap. But looking at it at the moment, Octane is going to take the provisional pole if he can hold steady. But these numbers are just wildly going everywhere on our timing board here. You know, anywhere between 0.2 to 0.5 or so up. But Garland approaching the last corner here, got a little bit of the slipstream from the car ahead of him as well. That might help push him just that extra half a tenth, and that's really what it's going to need to do today, apparently. Coming across the line, he's about 4 tenths up. This is going to be a high 37, maybe a 37.8 if I had to get in, almost exactly 37.8. And here we're going to see Billy come across the line here in a moment as well. He's coming around the last corner. He's 6 tenths up. It actually might be a 37.7, 37.6 even perhaps. It's going to be pretty quick. Going to hit the timing line, And he invalidated his lap. Ah, Billy. He had such a good lap going too. He must have invalidated it. Hopping those corners just a little too much.
We had so much faith in you, Billy, as is usual. That's going to be Billy Octane crossing the line with a invalid lap at some point. I mean, it looked like he had incredible pace and time there, but might have lost it. A common thing we've actually noticed is, on the screen, you'll see that if they do invalidate it, it looks like they're doing really well, but then it'll kind of slip up a little bit and then, invalidate. And it could have been anything, if you're pushing these corners and you're pushing the curbs as hard as you can, and the sim just decides that, that was just a little too far for me, throws the lap. But the really nice thing is, even in a short qualifying session like this is one of the shorter time tracks. We actually see Andy Boardman crossing the line. He's going to improve his time up to a 1:37.329, which is going to put him back ahead of Garland by almost 5/10. I mean, that's a incredible pace out of Boardman, and hopefully Billy Octane gets a second run of it.
Yeah, I mean, he is a few tenths up again on his lap. That is not going to be enough to get up into first place. However, it might potentially put him on the front row. And of course, for our AM class, that is our AM class leader directly above Billy Octane there. Kuvalainen, I believe, is how we're going to pronounce that today. But here comes Billy across the line, only a couple tenths up. That's not going to get him enough for second, even if it is valid. It is going to put him in third, though, get ahead of that AM class driver. He's got enough time for 2 more laps if he got the fuel for it. He is going for it at the moment, so he's going to keep on going. Looking down the field a little bit here, there is Hilicalio, who actually just put down a lap. Didn't notice him earlier. I think that was his first time lap, but he threw down the gauntlet for Garland here to beat, getting onto that front row with a 1:37.584. Couple tenths back from Boardman still, but again, Hilicalio here was the guy at the first part of the practice who was handedly out in first place, and we saw Garland kind of take that over, and Boardman was doing pretty well as well. Of course, Billy Octane in there in that 35, pretty far up the grid as well. But Hilicalio is currently 3 tenths up on his lap. So is Garland behind him, and Billy Octane 4 tenths up. So again, we've got all 3 of these guys. They are just hunting down Boardman. Boardman is out on the track. He just passed the line. Not a faster lap. He was about a tenth or so back, but he is trying to go for one more. Hilicalio 2 tenths up. Garland and Billy about 4 tenths apiece. That is enough to potentially put Hilicalio and Garland in that first place if they can keep up their lap. If our cameraman can keep up here, for some reason panning over to the right, not Nicholas, just the guy who is using the actual camera in game there. But Hilicalio hard on the brakes in that last corner, picks up another tenth, loses it a little bit on the way out. This is going to be very, very close. He's about 2 to 3 tenths. He might get it here, and he will. He actually takes a tenth over Boardman, putting down a 37.203. So we have a new leader for the moment. Garland looks like that he did not improve on his time much, not enough anyway. Still behind Billy. He did improve slightly, but just not enough. And of course, our AM class leader back in 6th place. Not sure if he is actually 5 tenths up or 6 tenths up, or if that is a game bug. But so this is Souza here. Who is, I found him on my timing board here. For some reason, I wasn't seeing him. He is no longer up, and Kuvalainen, though, was the gentleman I was talking about earlier. He picked up a couple more tenths there, taking that AM class lead pretty handedly. Souza just not up on his time yet, and of course that is Hilicalio behind him, so that is the current leader behind him, and these guys just not able to pick up enough time so far, it looks like. Souza's just too far down on his lap. He's 2 tenths down. Hilicalio behind, going to go ahead and abandon his lap. He was about a half a tenth down as well. That said, Felipe and Dustin Woos about a tenth up back in 9th and 10th. Little bit of time coming up from them, but just not enough to improve their positions too far. These top 5 drivers are the only ones within a second, which is something we don't see very often. Usually a lot of the times we see 15, 20 guys within a second of each other, but we've got just a couple really quick guys in these Ginettas out here today. As we wrap up the qualifying run, Steve Banks back in 8th, about the only one left out on track. a couple tenths up on his lap as he is going to finish this one up, coming across to the final corner now. I believe, oh no, he's coming up to the hairpin now, goes very wide,
Oh, that's
touches a
gonna be
little bit of the
invalidate.
grass. It might have been. You can really run the track limits here at Zolder. It may have been an invalidation. If not, he will pick up a couple positions. He might even put himself on the front row of that AM class, which would be overall third row. But he did lose a little bit more time, only up a tenth. Hard break into the corner in the last corner here. Cuts the grass again, and there's the invalidation you can see because the session just ended. So he has already finished his lap. White flag is waving for him, and we are going to jump into the race session here shortly. Right now, in fact, as the game catches up and lets Nick Hitz drive again.
Yes, I like when it does that. So, well, from there, we will have to just kind of do a little bit of faith from here. You know, you can see the beautiful HUD for ACC because sometimes it doesn't like you hitting drive right after the session transfer. Usually we have a little bit more of a cushion time, but the sim got a little antsy. As I mean, I am too. I mean, honestly, like this is going to be a really fun race to watch. See how these drivers handle the Ginettas around Zolder. This is actually a track that we didn't get to see as part of the Monday championship. So this would be a kind of a new place to see with the Ginettas.
It will, yeah. Like I was talking about earlier, this is just going to be a really cool track in the Ginettas because it is just built for them almost perfectly, right? Very tight corners, very hard on the brakes. These Ginettas are really good around corners, really good on the brakes. They're really good coming out of a corner. They just don't have the proper top speed to really do that. We're going to see Nick try to reset his client here so we can get down on the grid just a little bit. So bear with us as he rejoins the server. Of course, still waiting on the grid to come through anyway. About 3.5 minutes left on that grid timer before we will get onto the formation lap and onto this 60-minute race. Of course, let's see. Going to drive mode. Hey, it lets us into drive mode. Oh, that's a start, ladies and gentlemen. we're getting there slowly today. ACC and its little quirks does happen every once in a while, but you know it is what it is. We work around it. Is it letting you go over to your camera next and walk down the grid?
Yes, so we're going to be jumping to that camera right about now at the transition, but we are here now. So Mike, go ahead and take us down the grid.
All right, so here on the right in the 56 bright green Ginetta today for individual racing, we have Hilicalio taking first place. And of course, this is Andy Boardman in second. Going down the grid here on the right, Billy Octane in that Miami Vice colored car. Pretty traditional for him in third place. And Alan Garland taking up fourth there on your left side of the screen. As we continue on down the grid. It's not letting you move.
Sorry, I was not broadcasting to the people, so that was only to us. So yes, we're walking down the grid.
Unhelpful. All right. So now that we're back up, yeah. So we have Hilicalio, Boardman, Octane, Garland. That is Garland there, and the 101 on the left side. Going back down, our AM class leaders for today will be Kuvalainen in the 725 and the green and black there on your right side. Souza in the 89, Bach in the 24, Banks in the 16. A little farther back, Higgins in the 33, Felipe in the 696. And then we get all the way back to 11th place. This will be Dustin Woost, who we should see. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be a competitor today. He's got excellent race pace. You can see him in that purple mobile as we approach there on the right. Good choice there, Dustin. Woolmuth in the 477. Mark Brown in the neon color highlighter color there, 55 Ginetta. Clark in the 333 to his right, camera left. Almedia in the 32, Silva in the 64, Daniel Machant in the 145, Ted Edwards, one of our staff members, community moderators here with RCI in the race today in the pro class. Didn't qualify too well in the 9.5, but he is up on the grid. Then we go down to the 34 to your left side of the screen now of Holmes, J. Cole in the 731 there on your right. I actually kind of like that livery too, that black and blue. Ericsson in the 17. I'm the 52 car on your right, Vasconcelos. Let's go with that. Semonite in the 888. And as we go back to the last guy on the grid here, this is Nathan McConnell in the 23 car. So 30 seconds or so left. These cars should start firing themselves up. Of course, something to note on these Ginettas or GT4s in general. Anybody who races ACC at least will know this. There is a tire warmers that you put on the GT3 cars. These GT4s do not have tire warmers. They don't have the blankets and the warmers and everything on the grid. So these guys start about 20 psi off the grid. That means that they do actually really need to spend their formation lap heating up these tires. It is very hot here in Belgium today, however. Only 8 a.m. and we are near 30 C here on the track temperature, pretty equal across the ambient and track temperature, but we should see that sunrise potentially if these clouds break. Heavy clouds here today, not a lot of wind as they are released across the for the formation lap here, but these conditions should change ever so slightly through the practice. Of course, we saw it be just a little bit sunny through qualifying in the afternoon. Again, pretty sunny out, so we'll be curious to see, at least for the next 30 minutes, heavy clouds on the horizon. We're going to see if these guys can keep their tires up to temperature. Wouldn't be surprised to see these guys weaving around a bit as they can, and you can see that there on your screen. Just trying to get these tires up to temperature. They've got about 6 to 7 psi they need to try to get into these things during a formation lap, and it is difficult to do so when the sun ain't out.
Yes, definitely, and yeah, you can see them trying to do everything they can. This is something that we saw in the Monday Night GT4 championship that we just wrapped up. The lack of tire warmers is definitely a factor, and it leads to the first couple laps being a little more dicey than they would be expecting when you're used to that, especially when you're used to the GT3 class that has the tire warmers. You go out and you got like one good warm-up lap and then you're pretty much good to go. The GT4s, depending on the track, you might have a couple where you're not feeling too confident about it, especially out of the formation lap. So turn one is always a little bit of a treat for us.
Well, not even turn one here at Zolder. It's going to be turn 1, 2, 3, all the way down to about turn 12 or however many corners this track has. So, of course, as we've mentioned a couple times now, you hit these corners really hard here at Zolder. And when you have soft tires aren't quite up to temperature, you could be causing damage to your tires. The crew chief in ACC, you'll hear that sometimes. They'll say, cold tires, stay away from the curbs. That is true. You will actually damage your tires if you're running over the curbs a little too much. You'll get little bits of wear on them, and that can really add up over the course of a race, especially here at Zolder. It's going to be interesting as they're starting to stack up 2 by 2 coming into the final corner. So before we start here, Nick, let's ask the traditional question here.
Oh boy.
Who do we like today?
So I mean, I gotta hand it to Hilicalio. I mean, he had an incredible run in the Thursday night championship. He was in the AM class and has had an absolute blowout, and it's awesome to see him at the top of the grid here, up with the pros. I got to put my money on Hilicalio.
All right, well, I'm liking Garland in that 101. We're going to see how this goes as they're coming across the start-finish line here. There we go. Green, green, green. We're going live for the Ginetta here at the Ginetta Cup at Zolder. Hilicalio taking that easy first place right off the line. Boardman over there behind him. That is Billy, however, in third place. Garland falling back just a touch there. These guys weaving back and forth as they come into turn 2, almost touching a little bit, but just catching themselves ever so slightly. These top 4 cars, nose to tail as we go across. That is our AM class leader there, Kubalainen, on the 725 green car behind them, green and black there. However, Hilicalio did get that jump and just took off. That should be Boardman behind him still. These guys pretty much lining up single file as they come around this corner. A little bit of side-by-side action in the back, but this is the first chicane here. This is where it's all going to go down. Hard on the brakes. There's the hopping. We're not going to see anybody, or at least Hilicalio, keeping it together there all the way through there. We see Boardman, Octane, and Garland all doing well so far. Those cold tires not caused any problems so far. In the back there, I believe I saw just a little bit of a touch in the back there, but not too bad overall. These guys keeping it pretty clean for lap 1 for the most part, hopefully. And these leaders, though, staying almost nose to tail.
Yeah, the split between the pro and am in this race is actually really close. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out with the both classes, competing with each other almost just as much as they are competing within their own class. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of the race. I mean, this is your top 4 is your top 4 pro drivers, but Kovalainen in the AM split is not falling behind, just with these top 4 kind of, making some room for themselves. Helicalia, again, had that excellent start, but this is Boardman pushing out to the outside. He's going to try to make this move happen. Helicalia has to go on the defensive, but I think he's still going to have the momentum coming around the outside corner. He's got his nose ahead of him, but now they're going to go side by side into the next corner. So Helicalia is still on the inside. He's going to actually get the jump just a little bit. Boardman's going to tuck back behind. That is some excellent driving coming out of Sector 1.
Yeah, it's not the easiest turn to go side by side there, and you see Boardman kind of dipped out of it. However, we're going to see these guys go side by side. That's Boardman and Octane going in the first chicane. Little bit of a touch there. Billy Octane goes, you know what? Nope, never mind. But he is going to try and take it out of the chicane as well. This is a good passing point here. You coming into the second chicane. That's going to be Billy Octane on the first corner inside. Who's going to get harder on the brakes? That's going to be Garland. Gets a little bit of a touch even into Hilicalio. Knocks each other off the track a little bit there. They're going to cycle back out again in first and second. So no, not a lot of loss there. But Boardman just a little too hard on the brakes there almost, and that's going to cost them just a little bit of a touch. Hopefully not too much damage for them, but they're, again, these top 4 drivers just nose to tail still as they're approaching the end of lap 2. Little bit of a space behind them. It actually looks like Bach got in front of Kovalainen back there for the AM class lead at some point, and this is now back to 10th place. We see Maximilian Woolmuth that we're on board with at 477 here, and he's on the inside for the final corner here. No passing going to happen there. He goes a little bit wide. Looks like somebody's actually going for the undercut there. I see somebody diving into the pits into the background, so that's going to be an early pit stop. I think that may have been Dustin Woost, if I'm not mistaken. It is indeed Dustin Woost into the pit, going for that undercut. We're still watching Woolmuth here, now into turn 1 on the outside, as Felipe, or Alameda, I think there, is diving underneath him. They're still side by side, coming into turn 2 and 3, and just going to hold that line all the way through. And again, this is where we saw the leaders try to pass the last lap, and it just does not work to stay in, 2 by 2. Coming into these couple corners specifically are very difficult to pass in, and so we see them cycle back on single file. However, here is Hilicalio and Billy Octane. A little bit of a touch going over the chicane there, and there it is right there. Garland slides on past Hilicalio, and there it is. You're hopping over these curbs, and he took just a little too much that time, even got himself a little loose, and Garland just capitalizes on it. However, all this fighting, you'll notice on the left side of your timing screen there, Hilicalio may have just dropped down to 4th. However, Boardman took off in that 69 car, and he has now gapped himself almost a second and a half above Octane just because of all this fighting that has been going on in the background. While it's been exciting so far, that might cost these guys in the long run if they keep fighting and Boardman can just check out. Me and you might both be wrong, Nick, and he might just take off and go run away with it.
Yeah, Hilicalio dropping down to 4th position. I mean, that was just a bit of a miscalculation. He had such a strong lap 1 and 2, and then coming around for lap 3 here, just looked like he lost a lot of pace there and just jumped down to 4th. You actually see Bach, the AM class leader currently, even putting a little bit of potential pressure on Hilicalio going into Sector 1 here. So I'm curious to see what happened there. But that is, yeah, that's Hilicalio dropping back just a little bit, but I mean, that's probably just a bit of time loss. Billy Octane grabbing some grass a little bit for a little bit of a speed boost. That's not how that works, Billy, unfortunately. But he's maintaining some space in front of Hilicalio, but that gap is closing. But that at the bottom of your screen there, that is Boardman trying to run away with first position, so let's see what Garland does about that.
Yeah, and running away with first position he is. So as they were crossing the hairpin on the last lap, they were 1.6 seconds difference. That is now 2.3 seconds according to the last sector time. And of course, these guys still shaking themselves up. We did see Billy grab that grass. Garland slide on past him, so Garland picking up another spot in that second position. Hillicalio still back and forth, grabbing a little bit of that grass and curb, slowing himself down just a little bit as we switch to the front splitter cam and see just how unlevel this track is here at Zolder. This is a very up and down course, especially coming across that second chicane area. You get that big old dip coming to the second chicane, and it can really unsettle the car, especially as right after that you're going kind of uphill and to the right as you come across to the start of Sector 3, the end of Sector 2. But you can see how much these guys are able to cut these curbs. Those little rumble strips just not even affecting him, that you can really see from this front splitter cam. Not even a little bit of drama there from him as Billy's looking again. He wants back past Garland. He is not going to settle in for third place, but Boardman 2.9 seconds up now. His last lap was a 38.1. Second place with Garland a 38.8. That is a little under 7/10 that Boardman picked up overall. It's about 6.8 tenths or 0.68 of a second or so that he picked up last lap, and he is still running away. You can see him there. He's still on the track. You can see him in front, but he is distancing himself slowly and slowly in front of these guys as they just keep fighting. However, there is a little bit of a... They've calmed down just a touch now. There's a couple tenths between them. I'm curious to see how much they can kind of pick up potentially on Boardman this lap. 52 minutes left in this race, however, though, so we've just got plenty of time for these guys to do their thing. Going to jump back to another battle farther back in the pro class now. This is Nathan McConnell ahead of him, Mr. Clark in the 333. These guys nose to tail hard on the brakes in that 333 car. You saw him wiggle just a little bit as his brakes locked up, but not enough for the 23 and McConnell there to pass him in that turn. However, he is right on the nose. You can see just how close these guys are coming in and breaking into this hairpin here. This is a really hard braking zone. Not able to quite grab enough, and I apologize. That is actually a timing board just updated. That is Higgins in front of him, not Jason Clark. So that is a 33, not the 333. But it looks like McConnell just going to kind of get back a little bit. Doesn't want to punt him into their corner. Breaking about that 80-meter board or so coming into the last corner. Hopping over the curb. Going to try and get a little bit of a run. But Higgins, this just shows the power of that Ginetta. If you get it right, that thing just rockets out of a corner. And Higgins, you can see him pull away coming out of that final corner across the timing line to start lap 5 here of this very, very long race here at Zolder. Or
yeah,
what's going to feel like a long one anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It was actually interesting you were mentioning the kind of elevation and dips in this track. I mean, that's something that, a lot of the courses in ACC have a lot of elevation going on that you really can't see, especially if you're a spectator, kind of looking down on the track from the TV cams. Sometimes it's not as obvious, but on certain tracks, I mean, they could be gaining or losing a lot of elevation. That really plays into how you should be taking certain corners, or even how they're banked, or how their curbs are shaped, or anything like that. That's a big thing that adds a lot of personality to a lot of these courses, and it's something that you got to kind of feel from the driver's seat to really see. Just jumping back up to the front, still these three are still stacked, but that is Boardman running away with it just a little bit more each lap. From the last laps that came in, he ran a 137.7 last, and this pack is running somewhere between a 138.2 to 4. So yeah, that's just Boardman just found that pace. He broke from the pack, and without competition, that's looking a little dangerous. I mean, we'll see how that when they pull in for their mandatory pit stops. Actually, while we're talking about that, there is a mandatory pit stop for this race. That is the amber 1 on the timing board there. You'll actually see a few at the bottom have already pulled in for early pit stops, and we've seen that work out for some drivers, but the front, most drivers need to pull in for that pit stop at some point, and that might be the advantage that we need to see to get Boardman back behind somebody to kind of pull him, rein him back into this very contested fight for the podium.
I think this is going to stay contested until we see that. I mean, we've seen these guys grab grab grass a few times. We just saw Billy grab the grass again, get a little bit of sideways, but these guys doing very well to keep a hold of these cars. Of course, the Ginetta, a pretty solid car overall. You can get this thing a little loose and keep a handle on it for the most part. Of course, I'll say that, and then next lap we will have somebody kind of spin around, but we're going to see how this shakes out. Of course, a 60-minute race with a pit stop. As Nick was saying, the pit stops can really mean a lot, as we actually see somebody got a little bit out of shape there, I assume. I think that's Alameda must have gotten a little out of shape, as we see Silva slide past him, and that's Woolma sliding past him as well. So probably caught himself a little bit on the grass, unfortunate for him. But Silva there doing pretty well to stay ahead of Woolmuth. Of course, Woolmuth is one of our pro class drivers today. Again, just to mention, the boards on the left happen to be switched today because the file doesn't want to pick them up properly. So the pros are in the red, the AMs in the white today. AM drivers pretty excited about being promoted up to pro class today. And of course, 5th to 8th actually our AM class at the moment overall. Not a ton of pro drivers on the grid today. There was, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them on the grid today. So not quite as many pros to AMs, but you know, they're all doing reasonably well. If we look at like the top 4, of course, they're almost 4 seconds ahead of the AM class. As we're going to switch back over here, watching these guys once again. This is Octane and Hilicalio nose to tail now. Garland has actually gapped them just a touch. He's picking up just a little bit on Boardman as well. Little bit of a sideways action there from Billy coming out of the chicane. Took a little too much of the curb, but Hilicalio not able to capitalize just quite yet. These guys know that they have a long race ahead of them, and they want to make sure that they keep it clean and, you know, kind of pass when you need to. Zolders can be, at the same time, it can be very difficult to pass and very easy to pass, because it's a lot of places you can really get out of shape at Zolder very easily. There's a lot of hard braking zones, but at the same time, the chicanes can make it difficult to pass. So the rear splitter cam here that we're watching from Billy, you can again see how this gradient really works here at Zolder. Ooh, looks like we had a blue flag car there, kind of maybe getting a little bit of a surprise from Billy. I think he got on a hammer just a little too hard there coming into that last corner. But so I was looking it up, Nick, by the way. So Circuit de Spa, which is probably one of the most gradient courses across ACC, right? You've got a Rouge at the bottom as you go up and onto the straight there. It's such a huge gradient there. That's at about 14% or so of a gradient, 14 to 18. Let me check on that one again. But the gradient here at Zolder, for comparison, is 3.4%. So, you know, that's a pretty steep gradient by any means. So it's actually this corner that we're going to come up to after this chicane where you see most of that gradient happen. So if you, the second chicane here on this track, that's where a lot of that gradient is. He's going uphill right now, and then that steep downhill into the chicane, that dip in the chicane, and then that right-hander. So this is a big old dip, and then up and around. You can really get out of shape there. And then this is all uphill here as well as it goes across. And it's a lot steeper than it looks on the TV cam.
Yeah, absolutely, and it adds a lot of strategy. I mean, like you can see, it kind of throws. You saw Billy Octane go into that corner off the little descent off there, really, and you know it picks you up just that little bit of speed that might destabilize you if you're not ready for it. So, you know, again, every course in ACC has its own personality. Those little quirks about it that you got to know. And where you can really find most of the time. I mean, as someone who is a below rookie driver, you know, learning the personality of each track is where the pros really find their time. You know, even if I run a decent lap, I mean, it's going to come down to knowing where to find that extra time, and really, you know, speak to the personality of the course, and you know, to find that pace and get up with the pros. But you know, that's something that comes with time, something that comes with just putting, you know, hundreds of laps down on each of these courses, and you know, that's why they're the pros. Jumping back on the grid just a little bit here, you know, the front's actually settled down quite a bit. This is Nathan McConnell in the 23. He's currently a little bit under fire from Steve Banks. I'm sorry, that is the 14 car.
Nope, it's Banks. That's Banks behind him. So yeah, they've been fighting for a little while here,
Right.
back in 12th, 13th, or 13th, 14th, and we'll see Woolmuth actually pulled into the pits. He had actually just made a pass down as well, so he went for the undercut. He made a little bit of pass and decided, you know what, I'm going to go into the pits. So he's going to come out back in 17th now. Of course, he was up in, I believe it was 9th or 10th, pretty high up in the grid. So we'll see how that works out for him. But this is McConnell, Banks, and Edwards all stacking up here for 12th, 13th, 14th place. Edwards not doing too well overall in the pro class today. I saw him kind of he got a little shunted off course there, turn one or lap 1 or 2. Just maybe a little bit of an incident there. So he's trying to make up some time here, and he is kind of catching these guys a bit. But Banks is trying to get ahead of McConnell here. McConnell in the pro class, Banks in the AM class. However, Banks putting down some pretty reasonably consistent times. McConnell struggling just a bit to keep it consistent. He's putting down reasonable times, but seen him made some mistakes here and there, and that's been costing him in relation to Banks. So I'm going to see him actually dive out on the inside here for turn 1, hard on the brakes, and he's just going to slide on past, I think. There is just a little bit of a gap there as they come out of the corner, and he's going to have to slide back behind. So that is Banks taking on McConnell, and that is Edwards coming down the track. He wants a piece of this action as well. He's been catching him. He was a second off the last sector, and you can see that is much less than a second now behind these guys. He is about 4/10 back or so as he crosses the next timing line. Here in a moment, we're going to start seeing that, but I don't think he's quite close enough to attack coming into the chicane. But there it is. Yeah, he's only 3/10 back. So we're going to see how this shakes out for these guys. They've been switching back and forth here for the past 10 minutes, and I'm sure they ain't done.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, the rear wing cam giving you that nice gradient over the hill there to kind of show that change of angle. Ted Edwards, yeah, trying to find some positions here from the likes of Higgins and Banks, but this is going to be Banks with that solid pass out of turn 1, and he's going to be putting the space between them. Just jumping up to remind you, Andy Boardman, with that break from the pack, he has maintained that lead and has been doing really well for himself. I mean, he's not running away with it, I would say. I mean, we're going to see, we're going to start seeing back markers a little bit, so might get a little bit of more traffic to affect his strategy. But again, just completely broke from that four-way battle that we saw for the first couple of laps, and is just kind of running away with it with the likes of Garland, with Octane starting to fall behind actually a little bit. Garland breaking away from the pack as well, so this battle kind of calmed down, and that might have been them deciding, hey, we actually need to stop fighting each other because that's Borman up there running away with the race.
Yeah, and of course Garland, I mean, he broke away a little bit from Octane and Helicalio, even a little bit before that, before Helicalio and Octane broke away from each other. But that said, it'll kind of depend on who makes the mistake. I think between Octane and Helicalio, they both made kind of a couple mistakes as this race has went on, and that's cost them. Of course, Helicalio making the big mistake early on in the race. I believe it was lap 4, in fact, where he made that big mistake and went down from 2nd to 4th. And that allowed Garland to make that jump up and just kind of distance himself a bit. He's actually gained almost a second on Boardman this lap. I think Boardman made a mistake because it actually looks like Garland's on his fastest lap of the race and Boardman's about a second down. So Garland going to come across the line here with Boardman. Boardman ran a 1:37.838, and as Garland comes across the line, a 1:37.887. So yeah, almost a second gain there, and that's really what it is right there. A little bit of mistake here at Zolder can really cost you. If you hop that curve just a little too much, even in these GT4s, you can get squirrely and lose, a second pretty easily. And we've been seeing that here and there. Of course, Billy riding the dirt quite often, and that's what's probably dropped him back to 3rd place. But battle heating back up just a little bit. If these guys keep on, making these little small mistakes here and there, we're going to see the gaps kind of close over time, and I would not be surprised to see here in about 15 minutes or so these guys all stacked up one by one again. At least that's what we're going to hope for, because it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's going to come down to the pit strategy for these drivers. I mean, that's what's going to kind of put them back into position, depending on where they pull in. We're just past the 20-minute mark into this race, so this is still would be a pretty early pit at this point. Usually near the top of the grid, we wouldn't expect to see these drivers pulling in. Probably at least until there's the last 20 minutes of the race, especially in the GT4 class that seems to handle it pretty well. So that's something that we'll have to kind of wait and see. But again, those little mistakes can cost them, and if the likes of Boardman, even with his incredible pace, he gets a little too comfortable, and just trying to find that. I mean, he's just basically hot lapping right now. If he finds a mistake somewhere, a little kink somewhere, and grabs some grass, that might be the pace that he needs to lose to make this competitive. This is actually the battle for 11th position. You see actually quite a few cars stacking up behind Clark here. So this might actually be heating up to be a battle to get into the top 10. Actually, he's going to go completely wide and cut that corner almost in half. That was insane. So yeah, that's going to be a tough cut for him. He's going to lose a lot of pace, and you can see how much that affects him. He's got that dirt on the tires. That's going to be at almost potentially 2 cars getting past him. And yes, those mistakes are going to cost. He's going to fight back for the position, but he's going to lose it, and it's going to slip from his grasp. That's going to be Higgins just kind of sneaking past. Even Clark, trying to fight for position. He's got the inside corner, and has been, trying to get that position back from him. But Higgins is going to maintain a just much smoother line through that sector, and is just going to sneak that position away from him.
Yeah, that's back in the background there. That is Edwards and McConnell going side by side. Edwards peaked on the inside, not quite able to get the move done yet, but we're seeing these guys hop over the curbs here, and that is a little bit of a too much of a hop for the 33 of Higgins, as we see Clark going on the inside there for the next corner. He is not, however, gonna smash the dirt. Zolder here, a very narrow track, and he's just not able to keep it quite on the track, making sure that he's not going into the door of the car beside him, and that's going to cost him back into 12th place. Of course, this was the fight that we were watching just a few minutes ago before we jump back to the leaders for a moment. However, they have added Clark to this fray. So this is Higgins, McConnell, and Edwards that we were watching maybe 3 to 4 minutes ago. And just another car added to the fray of the 333 here. Clark currently slid down to 12th after a cut in the last corner on the last lap. These guys all pretty close to each other, about 3/10 worth of distance. The 23 and McConnell really hard on the brakes. He tried to get down there and next to Clark, not able to quite make it. Not enough of a run coming out of the corner as we watch back from the wing cam of the leader of this pack, which is Higgins here in the 33. These guys kind of settling through the first couple turns. Not the easiest places to pass here in these first couple turns. If you can get side by side here, especially in this particular section that we're in now, it's very difficult because the car just likes to drift all the way up the track and use all of the track if possible. So these guys all single file this time by as we're approaching the 35-minute mark in this race, almost to the point of being halfway done. And we're still seeing these battles all the way back through the pack. 4 cars here through the middle of the pack. Of course, the leaders up there have all distanced themselves again, roughly 2 seconds or so between all of them, give or take. Boardman took off a little bit as well. We're seeing a little bit of a fight for a couple positions here, but this is the main one that's happening at the moment. These guys just kind of waiting for that little bit of a mistake. We have seen multiple mistakes come out past couple laps, and that has shaken up the order. But so far, the last lap and a half here, rather, they've been doing pretty good to keep it steady. But that Clark is just nailing the brakes going to the hairpin there. And while he got really close to the back of Higgins, not enough to make a move. Higgins got the run out of the corner, and we've seen that happen time and time again with him. Higgins very steady coming out of the corner, and this Ginetta being so quick to accelerate out of the corner, doing him well so far, hold on to the lead of this pack in the top 10.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, something fun to point out here is Higgins is actually an AM driver. in this kind of four-way split right now. So that would explain why Clark got so flustered. I mean, he didn't want to let an AM driver through. But I mean, that's Higgins. Just he's just chilling. You can tell by his line. It's just super steady. He hasn't been, pushing the curbs that hard, not throwing any dirt up. But you can see Clark, every time Clark gets close, I mean, he's just angry about losing that position. You can see his line just gets a little squirrely every time that he gets even a little closer than about what he's floating here. So, again, consistency, that is what's going to win you races. So that's a excellent demonstration by Higgins right now in the 33.
Consistency, especially here at Zolder, as we've talked about quite a few times. This track is one that it's a fun track, and it's even funner in these GT4s, I think. But at the same time, it's a track that can throw you. You get it wrong ever so slightly, and you hit the curb at the wrong spot. You touch the curb at the wrong corner. This corner that Billy Octane here, as we're switching back to him, this corner right here, as you're coming out of it, if you touch that curb just a little too much on the left, it will just throw you. And you can see he's just trying to avoid touching it, gets himself a little sideways even, but that is Hilicalio that has caught him. He was about a second and a half back a couple laps ago. So Octane, again, making small mistakes as they approach some lap traffic here. It looks like, I think that was a blue flag car ahead of Octane. Unless that was just the camera jump. Yeah, that was just the camera jumping there. Thought there was a lap car there. Never mind. Oh, excuse me. So Hilicalio here all over the back of Octane as they're approaching the halfway mark here. Again, this fight for the podium still ongoing. Garland and Boardman have pretty much checked out. Octane 3.5 seconds behind Garland. He's going to go for the inside defensive line here into the hairpin. That's going to be Hilicalio hard braking on the outside. Is he able to get the run, the cutback off the corner? He is not. Octane gets the good run coming out of the corner, defends successfully from Hilicalio for one more lap, but these guys have about 17 of those to go, and that is 17 hard laps to defend against a driver like Hilicalio. Dominated it was the Thursday championship, I believe you said, Nick, in the AM class, of course, but still dominated that championship up in the pro class for this event here.
Yeah, definitely. He's showed incredible pace so far from what I've seen from him. He's definitely one of my up-and-coming favorites to watch, just because he can be so consistent. But what's interesting here is this is the first time that I've actually seen him get into fights with people, because he was just running away with races. We didn't get to see him on the attack at any point. So this is kind of a new side to him, to kind of see how he handles this. I mean, he seems to be holding his own here. Billy Octane losing time to those little mistakes that he's been making, just kind of kicking out the side of the Ginetta a few times now here, and Hilicalio just waiting to capitalize on one of those little mistakes. Coming down the hill here, actually had some really good momentum coming into that corner, but Billy Octane just completely blocking the way. Zolder not being as wide as some other tracks can be at certain points, so the overtake is going to be a little tough, and it's going to come down to Hilicalio just has to use the Ginetta and get the launch out of one of these corners and get around Octane, and simultaneously kind of capitalizing on getting around him and him losing pace. On your screen, you'll see Almeida in 32 is going to get a drive-through for pushing the track limits, and that is going to be a sim-delivered penalty. We actually do not have live stewards today for this particular race, but any penalties that you see on screen is going to be sim-delivered and not our doing. So that's going to be Almeida losing a bit of time to the deceptively long pit lane at Zolder, so that's going to be a bit of a blow to him, probably dropping him out of the top 10 at least, looks like, based on the splits that he has.
Yeah, I'm gonna estimate he comes out probably around 20th or so. So we're actually seeing Banks. This is part of the fight we had going on earlier that we were watching before we jump back to the leaders. Banks coming in for his pit stop. Of course, it was Banks, Higgins, Clark, and Edwards. Banks had gapped a little bit there of Higgins in the background, but overall he is now coming in for his pit stop as we cross that halfway marker. It's 18th lap that the leader's on here. 17 laps completed. 18th about ready to be done. That should put us about another 17 laps to go in this deceptively long race here at Zolder. When you got to do 35 laps of a track, even at a minute and a half or so per lap, minute 35 to minute 40, this can be a very long but a very short race as well, especially for the likes of these guys who are stacking up side by side, and is getting longer for Alameda here in the 32. This guy's going to have to come into the pit lane either this lap or the next for his drive-through. Has not made his mandatory pit stop either, so unfortunate for him. And however, fortunate for Mr. Edwards, who, even though he has not made his pit stop yet, should get him up into the top 10 after some earlier incidents. He's actually fallen back off of that fight a little bit there. We did see Clark, kind of nose to tail there with those 4 guys for a while, and that is Edwards now kind of sucking up to the back of him there. He's 3.5 seconds back. Switching over to Jonathan Cole here, fighting, I believe this is Dustin Woost. Lap traffic getting out of the way very cleanly there as they're coming in. Dustin Woost has already made his pit stop there. Currently behind him, though. So it looks like Cole has slid past him at some point. So Dustin making some sort of mistake. And of course, Dustin in the pro class, Cole in the AM class today. Not good on Dustin. Dustin usually a very consistent driver, but he's just not. He's struggling a little bit in this Ginetta today. It looks like. I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we see with any cup race. You know, the drivers all have their preferred model that they like to drive, and they have to switch over to the same car for a cup race like this, and you can definitely see the separation of drivers. Even other drivers that might be super consistent or high up in the pro split. Maybe they just don't prefer this particular car, and maybe they're just losing pace to things that they wouldn't usually be losing pace to. I mean, like, you can see the mix from AM to pro. I mean, like, it's pretty well distributed all the way up the grid there. I mean, you see the top 3 in the pro split, but I mean 4 through 7 is the AM split, and it's kind of salt and peppered through the rest of the grid there on the left. So I mean, it's different drivers finding different pace with the Ginetta being a interesting beast, to say the least. It has that pace out of the corners, and again, a lot of people shied away from it because they didn't like the capped top speed on it. But that does not mean that it doesn't have great pace, especially if you can really get behind the wheel and kind of learn its personality.
A lot of personality this Ginetta does have. Of course, it is that car that just hits the rev limiter coming down the hard straights. As we're watching Cole and Dustin Woost here still fighting. Dustin Woost just all over the back of Cole here waiting for the opening. But yeah, this Ginetta, it suits Zolder really well just because it's very fast out of the corners. It corners really well. However, it doesn't quite have the top speed that these other GT4s have. So on a track like Paul Ricard and stuff, is watching Cole dive out of this race, he's a little concerned about Woost there. I think, and so he's going to dive into the pit lane and take it. But yeah, so the track like Paul Ricard, track like Spa, track like Silverstone, the Ginetta's just not going to do that well, just because of those top speed issues, unless you can really, really get good at the corners. And we saw that in both the Monday and Thursday championships with the Ginettas. But here at Zolder, perfectly suited for this. And on board again with your race leader for Pro Class, this is Andy Boardman in the 69. He's keeping pretty consistent behind Garland. It's anywhere between 2 to 3 seconds, depending on which lap we're on, and that is about where it's sitting as they kind of weave through lap traffic. This is Ted Edwards ahead of Alan Garland here at this point. Ted Edwards is going to move out of the way here shortly, I imagine, probably coming into the first chicane to get Garland on past him. And you see a little bit of a flash of lights there from Edwards as he kind of hits his brakes. He's waiting for Garland to come up. He's like, hey man, like, if you want to come past, let's go. And there's Garland. He's going to dive down to the inside for the chicane, slide on past. But there's multiple pieces of lap traffic here you can see. And there's Billy Octane now a couple cars back in third place. A little bit of lap traffic behind him as well. So lap traffic coming into play here. Octane now 6.5 seconds back off of Garland. Just not doing too well. However, we do have one driver missing out of this top 4 battle. currently down in 7th place. And if you'll notice, Hilicalio took his pit stop about 3 laps ago, dropped down to 7th place. However, he has kind of distanced himself a little bit. He's now on the tail of Higgins, give or take about a second back from him. So he's going to catch up to Higgins, hopefully not take too much time there. That early pit stop, whether it will help or not yet, is yet to be seen. Because, again, as Nick was saying earlier, this pit strategy between these guys, especially at Zolder, where you're going to get this lap traffic almost constantly, where you come out of your pit is really going to make a lot of difference. Like Boardman right now has got a clear in front of him. He just made his way through lap traffic. He's got plenty of space, but Garland, and Billy Octane both have a lot of traffic through still.
Yeah, definitely. This is actually going to be Garland pulling in for his pit stop with about 23 minutes to go in this race today. So the top 4 drivers that we saw all battling through the most of the first half of this race so far, they were battling for position, keeping it really tight, and now they all have very different pit strategies. It looks like we saw the likes of the 4th driver, Hilicalio. He actually pulled in for his pit before the 30-minute mark, so he was actually out of the pack and just wanted to get away from all that madness a lot sooner than the other ones. And then we saw Billy Octane pull in, and now Garland. So now this is up to Boardman, where he wants to pull in. He could be waiting until the last few laps even, just to kind of do a his pit stop.
Hard overfit.
Yeah, just pull it in and finish it off. But if Boardman can keep this pace up, it's looking like his race unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, I was just watching Garland's pit stop on my own screen as well. He is currently breaking into the first chicane as we're watching Hilicalio, who should have been in 4th. You can see just about how far he is behind. So there's Garland, Hilicalio about gapped 5 seconds or so. So Hilicalio can see Garland off there in a distance on some of the straights, but Hilicalio has not picked up any time against Garland. In fact, it's been about the same amount of gap based on the 2 pit stops as Hilicalio came in about 5 seconds behind Garland. That was 2nd and 4th place at the time of Hilicalio's pit stop, currently 5th and 6th. Of course, the top 4 cars here on the leaderboard have not made their pits yet. This is Adrian Bach on screen at the moment. He was one of the first drivers to take a pit stop, other than Dustin Woost. Of course, Dustin went for that very early pit stop in. Of course, Bach took an early one as well, but he's been kind of sliding back the order a little bit. I don't think he's had that great of a race overall here, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of pulling back here. It is kind of tough to pull from the tool here to see where everybody is, because we're just getting really mixed up in with the back markers and everything, which is playing like the biggest part of the strategy right now is kind of just dealing with traffic. That's something that Boardman was liking for the whole middle third of this race. He just had a lot of open air and was basically just hot lapping for a while, and it was able to get that distance and really secure himself into first place ahead. This is actually going to be Billy Octane in 2nd place currently. Garland pulled in for that pit stop and has dropped himself out, but it doesn't really matter at this point since they really weren't fighting and they all kind of found their own room. So now them pulling in for pits isn't as serious as it was before, where before you pull into the pits because you're sick of fighting the car in front of you, or you're battling too much and that's making you lose pace, which might have been something that they were noticing early on in the race. Boardman just broke away from the pack and they were still fighting each other. And now that they all have open air, it's just coming down to pace. But now with only 20 minutes left, I might not be enough time to really make much of a difference if Boardman has already had, a majority of the race at this point, where he just gets to, hot lap and just run a clean race by himself.
Yeah, just looking at the last laps, for example, Boardman versus Octane here, there was a 7/10 or 6.5 tenths difference rather between Boardman and Octane. Boardman running a 38.0. Octane running a 38.7, and there's 7/10 more that he just gained just that lap. Boardman not having a great lap this time. I think he's again cutting through traffic, but Billy Octane a few tenths off his main lap as well. And of course, here's Garland fifth place. You can see Hilicalio a little bit there in the background as it kind of pans across a bit, but he's gapped Hilicalio even a little bit farther since he came out of the pit. About a second or so that he's gained, and Garland he's been very quick this entire race. Him and Boardman almost matching pace. Little mistake here, little mistake there, couple tenths. They stayed 2 to 3 seconds gapped between each other for almost 25 minutes. But we're going to see how these pit stops shake out. Of course, again, 2 people pitted, 2 people haven't. Boardman and Octane still have not made that pit stop, as well as our AM class there. That's Kuvalainen and Silva. However, Kuvalainen has pretty much ran away with the AM class lead at this point. It is even more gapped than the pro split is, as we're still waiting for Silva to cross the sector line. There he is. It's 20 seconds back. And of course, Higgins is 3rd place AM, back in overall 7th. He's just pretty far down the grid. But that middle battle that we were watching earlier, that was Higgins, Clark, Edwards, and Banks, I believe it was. You can see Banks and Clark still fighting a little bit there. Edwards gapping them a little bit, but Banks has pretty much taken, Higgins hasn't pit yet out of those 4. So again, just another little fight that has been broken up due to pit stops. So interesting to see these guys back in 12, 13, 14, still fighting a little bit for position, not actively, but still there. And here's Alameda, who took that drive-through earlier. Now right back ahead of Dustin Woost. I believe he was the one ahead of Dustin Woost a few minutes ago as well. Oh no, that was Bach. Sorry. So here comes Alameda in for his pit stop. Now overshooting the pit lane just a little bit, grabbing a little bit of the grass. But that's gonna unleash Dustin into 9th place as you see him come across the start-finish line there. So there's Alameda in for his 2nd trip down the pit lane, this time for his pit stop. And this is what's going to cost him. I'm going to estimate he goes down to 18th after his pit stop, give or take. And of course, that drive-through costing him quite a bit, costing him that top 10 today, perhaps even. As switch back over to Silva versus Garland. Garland has caught up to Silva, and he is just throwing down laps. Looking at Garland's last lap, a 38.1, slightly slower than the leaders were doing. So a little bit of a mistake there, but he's just trying to make up any time he can, hoping that Boardman makes a mistake in his pit stop and takes just that few extra seconds inside the pit. Maybe overshoots his box, maybe takes a few extra liters, something like that. He needs a mistake at this point, and so far Boardman, he hasn't made a ton of them, just small ones.
No, Boardman's been clean and consistent. As soon as he broke away from the pack, just running those consistent laps, he currently actually has the fastest lap out on the track. And I'm curious to know where he found those extra few tenths. I mean, he found some open air where he was able to just kind of run some hot laps, and his average pace just he's pulling 3 or 4 tenths quicker than the other drivers that were right behind him when they were competing for the first few laps. So wherever he's finding that pace, that is a secret that he's holding close to his chest, because he's gonna run away with this race here in the Ginettas, where others where they were competitive, they just couldn't quite find that pace, and they are continuing to not find that pace. So we're waiting for the last few pit stops to come through. That's actually going to be the 101 pulling ahead, Garland pulling ahead.
Octane just took his pit stop. He came out directly ahead of Hilicalio. They're within a half a second or here now. So Octane and Hilicalio, they didn't make up any time in the pit. So again, this fight's going to ignite here the last 15 minutes or so as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be Silva dropping back behind here with Garland pushing ahead. Silva trying to fight his way up into the top 3, but he's still got that pit stop to take, so he's going to drop back to where he was back on the grid. All things going to plan in the pit lane. But yeah, that is Boardman and Kuvalainen, who are actually both of our split leaders today. That is your pro leader and your AM leader, up in first and second. Haven't taken those pit stops, but again, they can kind of take those at their will at this point. They're not getting any pressure from anybody, and even when they pull into the pit lane, they have enough of a gap from the driver behind them, that they can take it in security and pull back onto the track, do a couple more laps, and go ahead and take the gold for their split.
Yeah, if I'm Boardman at this point, I almost think that I would not pit until I caught lap traffic again. 14 minutes left in this race. I think that what I would do in Boardman's position is basically just say, okay, next time I catch lap traffic and I'm gonna start having to slow myself down, I'm gonna dive into the pit lane. You know, because it's about that time where you can really make that overcut work. At this point, you know, it's more and more unlikely that you're going to wreck yourself and need to pit for something else too. So, you know, we're going to watch Helicalio and Octane here do most of the fighting. I think Boardman and Garland have just gapped these guys too much for them to catch up unless a massive mistake happens. But here's Helicalio's front splitter, Octane there in front of him, and this is going to be the fight for the rest of the race here, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be for the last podium position in Pro. Helicalio getting really close there in the corner. Octane getting the run back off the corner though, as they're going to break into the final chicane here in about another 200 meters. Here it is, about right there, and Helicalio not hard enough on the brakes this particular lap. Octane keeping it steady, able to get out of that last corner, and that's really what it's going to come down to for Billy at this point. Even with Helicalio breathing down his neck, he's just going to have to keep it consistent. He's got to ignore the mirror, keep on his line, make sure that he's just keeping it consistent. He's stayed ahead of him most of the race here. You only got 13 minutes left to go, Billy. That's about, 6 more laps or so? He's got, that's a lot of time when you look at it as 6 more laps, 13 minutes, but, you know, these are pro drivers. You just got to make sure that they keep it consistent, not throw up the dirt, hit the curbs, throw themselves off the track, and Octane can keep it steady for that podium.
Yeah, absolutely. So up ahead of them, you can see Silva, who also hasn't taken their pit stop either. They're going to tuck in behind Octane and Helicalio here. So this is actually a battle for, looks like, 4th position. So they're going to keep fighting this out. I mean, this is going to go down for the rest of the race. I mean, this is 4th position, and they've both taken that pit stop. And you know, they can just kind of go back and forth here. Helicalio just after he had that early little incident, we actually didn't catch it on camera, but he just lost pace and just hasn't found it again. He's been, you know, on the attack ever since. Even you know, as was mentioned, he pulled out of the pits and was right behind Octane again. So you know, he was hoping for some clean air, and it just didn't work out for him. But yeah, that's just gonna be it's got to be frustrating a little bit for Helicalio. You know, when he was running away with races, and now he's got to fight with these pro split drivers, and you know, he can't just, you know, get around him and just run away with it. So seeing him on the attack is kind of a new side that we get to see out of him. And you know, after he lost that early pace, he hasn't been able to find it again.
I mean, you know, I don't even think that he's necessarily lost the pace. It's just that, you know, I think Boardman and Garland were just quicker than him. I think that, you know, I don't think that Helicalio and Octane ever had the pace to keep up with Boardman or Garland, for that matter. So, you know, Helicalio, he made that early mistake, and he's kept with these guys. I mean, obviously, he's right behind Octane. The problem being is just Garland and Boardman are just quicker than these guys in this Ginetta, and we're going to see these guys into the first chicane. That's actually be Helicalio. He's going to get a run. He may have a chance here coming into chicane 2, all over the back of Octane. Going to dive to the inside there on the right side. He gets into that little gravel pit there, though, and it slows down just enough that Octane's able to kind of slide on back past and keep himself in front. But Octane making that little bit of a mistake into the chicane 1, and that's all it takes right there. You know, Helicalio trying to make that run on him. And counterpoint to what you were saying, Nick, I think that I don't think Helicalio is frustrated at all. I think he's having a blast. You know, running away with a race is all good and well, you know, a time or two, but you know, personally, I'd get a little bored if I was just out there running hot laps by myself. I want to get up on somebody's bumper and fight with them for 45 minutes, and that's exactly what these guys have been doing this entire race. Billy's actually got a good lap going on here, though. This might be his fastest lap of the race, even with that little mistake. And it is just about not his fast lap of his race. Fast lap since he pit. He's still about 6/10 off his fastest lap, but you know, he's keeping it consistent. Even if he's making little mistakes, he's keeping it consistent and doing pretty well so far. we did see Silva, who was just ahead of these guys, make his pit stop a few moments ago, and he's filtered back to 10th place. So Silva holding on to that 10th place, and of course that's Banks and Clark kind of keeping that 11th and 12th. And the man we saw get the drive-through earlier, Alameda, back down in 16th place after his pit stop. But that's Higgins there, 6th place behind them. He has enough time to make it out, and he's not within range of a top 5 at this point, I don't think, because Kubalainen has ran away with it. But he is well within his rights to potentially even stay ahead of Dustin Woos, who he was fighting with earlier, before Woos made his early pit stop. So it'll be interesting to see where Higgins comes out. He's having a good race. I don't know that he's going to stay ahead of Felipe, though. I think he's going to drop down to that 3rd place position in AM. But a good race coming out by Higgins, as we're now 8.5 minutes or so left here. We got Andy Boardman in the lead for your pro class, Kubalainen in the lead for your AM class. Both of these guys do need to make a pit stop, but are kind of well ahead of their 2nd place people after the pit stop if everything goes well for them. Garland has been putting down good laps for the most part. His lap was actually almost exactly the same as Boardman's last lap. But keep in mind, he was a few seconds back before his pit stop. So unless Boardman makes a mistake, I think he still got the win coming out of the pit. But but it's racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zolder, like, the 2 now drive-throughs that we've seen, we see Vasconcelos picked up one for speeding in the pit lane. Actually, it looked like
That'd be track speeding in the pit lane, so that's 230.
Yeah, track limits, but so the drive limit, the drive-through penalty at Zolder is actually deceptively punishing, just because of how much time you have to get through that deceptively long pit lane. So anybody who had to run through it twice, like Silva for example, pretty brutal. You lose a lot of time doing that, and it can knock you out of the top 10. Even if you've had a clean race. We're still waiting on the likes of Higgins to pull in for that pit stop, but again, when he does, even with the splits that he does have currently in 6th position, I mean, like, he's probably going to lose out on the top 10 just because of how brutal that pit lane can be at Zolder. And also still waiting for the pit stops from your split leaders up at the top there, but again, they've put enough pace behind them that it's going to shake out that they will still be our provisional leaders up until the checkered flag, which is in about a little over 6 minutes now. So a few more laps to go. Jumping back to Billy Octane, who's actually lost Hilicalio quite a bit there. Hilicalio dropped back quite a ways. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or something that we missed off camera, but yeah, Hilicalio lost a lot of time all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was actually just looking back at that to try and figure out what happened on my own replay here. It looks like Hilicalio, let's see, coming into the final chicane. Yeah, he was right behind him all the way up, almost to live here. He spun coming into the first chicane, a little bit hard on the brake, and was just about ready to tap Octane, and decided, you know what, nope, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dive out of here, not tap Octane. He caught the curb and threw himself into the wall, so he has even lost himself a position on the overall perspective. However, Higgins obviously is got his pit stop to make so Hilicalio kind of took himself out of this fight, unfortunately, braking just a little bit too hard, as we see Kubalainen come into the pits for the M-Class lead. He is currently on his on the pit lane. This is going to be him coming in for his pit stop, and we're going to see what happens here. So Felipe is the only one that is within range to fight these guys at this point. I don't think Kubalainen is going to lose it at all, unless he makes a mistake in his pit here. But here's Felipe coming. Looks like this is coming out of chicane 2. He just doesn't have enough room, especially with this traffic ahead of him here. He's not going to make up enough time. He can still make up the time from Higgins, but he's trying to get around these lap cars here. This is actually the 34 car that you can see in front, which is it 24? Sorry, a Bach, I think it is. I don't see a 34 car. Oh no, 34 of Daniel Holmes back in 19th position. Sorry. So he's cutting his way through lap traffic. However, Kubalainen is out of the pit right now. So just not quite enough for him. Felipe, however, Higgins in the pit as well, and that's the position that he's going to gain right there. Is Higgins in his box at the moment? You can kind of see him to your left of your screen there, and that's going to be Felipe coming into second place in the AM class. As long as he can keep it steady for the next 4 minutes here, that's going to lock down that position. As Higgins lost quite a bit of time, he's going to be about probably 10 seconds behind Felipe as he comes out of the pit. However, Boardman is in the pit, and this is what we want to see here, because Boardman coming into the pit lane right now, this is going to be the interesting one. So if I could get Nick to switch over to Garland for a second here, let's see where he's at. This is going to be coming into the hairpin here, and this is going to be a lot closer than the fight that we were just watching. I don't think that Garland's going to have it as we see him come across, coming into the final chicane right now. Boardman not quite making his way out of his pit stall yet. He's waiting to be released. He's in this pit for a very long time. There he is. He just got dropped off his jacks as Garland's going to make his way on the final straight. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, oh, this is going to be so close. I think Boardman's going to have it slightly. He's coming around the corner right now, just getting back out on the track. We're going to see him briefly as the camera pans across, possibly here, but that is going to be Boardman about probably, what is that, 2.5 seconds if I had to guess ahead. He is just there. You can see him on the TV camera, and that is close. We got 3 minutes left. Any small mistake at this point from Boardman will cost him the race. He's got 2 more laps to run after this, and they are the timing line hasn't caught up quite yet. We're going to see here. There it is, 2.3 seconds, 2.369, and that is closer than I expected it to be, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. This actually might be a little bit interesting going into the first, the last couple of minutes here of this race, where Boardman was running away with this race as soon as he broke from the pack. But this is Garland. He's got his sights locked, and he might put up a little bit of a fight. I mean, like that's a big gap to make up, especially when Boardman has been making incredible time around Zolder today. But I mean Garland, I mean, if he's got the determination, and Boardman coming out of the pits might have lost his rhythm just a little bit.
Cold tires.
Yep, he's got cold tires right now, and losing that rhythm, that is a huge thing that can play into you. You can actually see Garland has been gaining on him. He gained a couple of tenths on that lap, as that was Boardman's out lap from the pit. So we've got at least 2 more laps here, because that was not the last. So this could be shaken out to be a pretty fun little battle for the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, very well could here. Of course, 2.1 seconds behind Boardman there across the start-finish line. We're going to see another sector time here in a moment as they approach the first chicane. Boardman's going to pass that here in about 3, 2, oh no, we're a little bit farther behind, sorry. Now in about 3 seconds or so, he's going to cross that sector line as well. There it is, and we're going to see what the gap is here. He's actually gained a second on Garland behind as he approaches the first chicane. And just not quite enough from Garland here. It looks like Boardman was able to warm his tires up quick enough. Of course, it has gained a little bit of temperature throughout this race, even if the clouds have stayed steady. Very heavy clouds, but it has went from 29C to 31C on the track today. Wind has stayed steady throughout this race at 1 kilometer per hour. However, the fights have just kind of broken up all through the pack here. The closest gap that we have at the moment is Sousa to Edwards back at 13th and 14th, but they're still a second apart from each other. So Higgins, that we saw pit earlier, we were talking about him. He did, in fact, come out in the top 10 just barely. He is 8 seconds ahead of Banks in 11th and 8 seconds behind Silva in 9th. So Higgins coming out from second place that he was in out to 4th in the AM class. As here is your leader, Boardman, ahead of Garland here, going to pass the start-finish line. We're going to hear the race controller. Leader is on the final lap. This is 1 more lap to go. Garland did not make up any time that particular lap. If Boardman can just keep it steady, he doesn't even need to make it quick, as he's 2.2 seconds up, 2.3 seconds almost. All he needs to do is keep it steady, not hit the corner too hard, not tap the grass, keeping it very tidy so far through the first couple corners here, not getting too close to the edge of the track. A little close there, but he just kind of knows if he just keeps this lap steady, that is a win for Boardman. And we're both going to be proved wrong here, Nick, as Garland did pretty well on my pick, but Hilicalio, of course, losing quite a bit of time there. 13 seconds or so off Billy Octane there in the back after his little incident of maybe 4 or 5 laps to go. Or go rather, Boardman breaking into the second chicane. Again, nice and tidy through there. We can see Garland trying to push as hard as he can. He actually lost a couple seconds trying to push because he knew that he's not going to lose the position unless he wrecks it. And he lost 2 seconds and has kind of taken himself out of this, I think, going a little wide through turn 3 or 4. But here is Andy Boardman in the 69 red and blue Ginetta here. Red, silver, and blue even. Going to break into the final chicane for the last time. About 80 meters in, hard on the brakes, down the second gear. As he makes his way around the right-hander, catches the curb and comes across the line. And there is Andy Boardman, your race winner today for the Ginetta Cup. Excellent race by him. Distanced himself early, got out, took the lead early, and just kept it all race long. Here's Kubalainen, your AM class leader today, back in overall 5th position. Not a bad run for him either. 4.5 seconds ahead of the nearest, or behind Hilicalio, and 13.5 seconds ahead of the next competition for him, which is Felipe there in 6th position. Here comes Kubalainen across the line as well. Excellent race by him in the 7.25 green and black Ginetta. And as we see the rest of the podium come across, that is Boardman, Garland, Octane, and of course Hilicalio taking up 4th. That's Kubalainen. And here comes Felipe across the line for the AM class podium. Dustin Woos actually going to finish in 7th. Not a bad run by him overall when you consider he had a little bit of a rough start. So coming across in 7th, which is 5th position in class. Woolmuth, here comes your last podium for AM class, but right behind Woolmuth there, that is Fernando Silva for the Old Fox Sim Racing 64 Ginetta. Higgins going to come across the line and does indeed finish in that 10th place as well. So, a little bit of a struggle for him through the middle of the race, but he ended up making it up. Here comes Banks across the line as well. A lap car there behind him finishing up. Looks like Bach actually got a DQ'd and decided he didn't want to take that drive-through and just kind of continue racing. He got a drive-through for track limits a while back. Took the DSQ, decided he didn't want to take it, just kept racing. Ted Edwards here in 13th place. Of course, our staff member in the race today, Ted Edwards here. Didn't quite have the best overall race. Had a little shunt on lap 1 or 2 or something like that. Not too good for him, but overall, having a very consistent time through the rest of the race, finishing up in 13th place.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it proved to be a interesting race. Again, we got to see the Jennas fly around Zolder today. Kind of see where drivers were comfortable with it. It was a not popular pick. I would say it was an underdog pick in the Monday championship that we just wrapped up last week. And it was fun to see them drive around Zolder here. Kind of learn its personality. Again, Zolder is always a fun track to watch. It's tight, technical with its little kinks that those little mistakes can really cost you here. And it led to a fun race. And congrats to our winners in both splits.
Yeah, so congrats to Boardman, Garland, Octane, your pro split lead, Kubalainen, Felipe, and Silva in the AM class as we wrap up the session here of the Ginetta Cup race here at Zolder today. We will see. I believe we're kind of have a little bit of an off week this week, surprisingly, because we've had races 3-4 times a week here recently, but our championships are wrapping up at the moment. So this week, guys, we will not have a Monday race this particular week, and the Thursday championship has wrapped up as well. However, we will be back on Friday for our final Friday Silver and Rookie Cup race for the Friday Championship. And then after that, the following Monday, our McLaren Cup Monday Championship will start. Make sure you check on Discord for that. If you'd like to sign up, signups are open as of last night. Little McLaren 720S as well as the 570S going to take to the streets for a 6-round championship. Keep an eye on the Friday Endurance Championship as well. That'll be 2 drivers, 2-hour races You guys can keep an eye on that. Signups will happen for that next week after the Friday Cup finishes up. And then, of course, the Night Owl Championship. I will be racing in that one myself. Nick, Jesse, and Josh, our resident American team, will be here to broadcast that starting next Saturday, 2300 BST for the Night Owl race. You can see the first round of that at Kyalami next week. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Make sure you guys all like and subscribe to us for more racing. We have an excellent team of commentators here that will bring you every single race that we do multiple times a week. So make sure you guys tune in whenever you get the chance. And we appreciate all the support here from Racing Club International, from the community. And in the meantime, again, congrats to Boardman, congrats to Kavalainen. Hope you guys have a great Sunday.